For coming. Welcome to the Noon Debrief. I'm Brad Worthen. If you haven't been here before or haven't signed in before, I'd appreciate it before you leave if you leave us your name and an email address so we can let you know about these in the future. There's a sign-up sheet right there on that table over there. George Orwell wrote, "Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past." Today, angry partisans on both the left and right, both trying to define the present and shape the future, battle ferociously over how our history is taught to the next generation. Mike Burgess knows all about this. Not only does he teach history at River Bluff High School, but in the past year he's been named both the Gilder Lehrman, you're not pronouncing that right?
That's correct.
Okay. South Carolina History Teacher of the Year, and South Carolina Daughters of the American Revolution Outstanding Teacher of American History. He's been talking and writing a good bit about how difficult it is to contend with politics over history. In fact, he recently wrote a guest opinion piece in the state newspaper, which told what it was like to be what he called a culture war pinata. He's going to speak about this today, and I hope you'll join me in welcoming Mike Burgess.
Well, I appreciate the Confederate Relic Room, South Carolina Military Museum for having me in today, for the simple fact that in about 40 minutes, my least favorite class checks in to my classroom, and I won't be there. And they'll be happy, and I'll be happy too about that as well. Of course, when you give talks like this, all of a sudden, some of your students want to go with you, and you think it's because they think you're really cool and this is really interesting. And I just realized that two of my students, one of which in the red sweatshirt lives at my house, they really are here for the lunch. I told them I'd take them to lunch afterwards, and we're eating lunch with Brad, I think, as well. And that's all fine and good. I hope y'all are ready to, with an open mind and open ears, to listen to what I believe is one of the greatest crises facing our community, our state, and our nation. And barring that, if you're not open-minded or want to listen, maybe I can provide you some comic relief. Maybe that's my goal here today. And you can look at me, and like my wife says, when I say, well, I need a joke to tell them, she says, well, if they look at your cotton-top head, they'll laugh. A primary object should be the education of our youth in the science of government. In a republic, what species of knowledge can be equally important, and what duty is more pressing to communicating it to those who are to be the future guardians of the liberties of the country? This was written by someone you may or may not have heard of, George Washington. Throughout my 29 years of teaching, I have and will always believe that history should be taught fully, fairly, and honestly, or else we have a limited understanding of the past, no way to explain the present, and no hope of building a better future. This means instead of creating a safe space for our students, we are charged with building a brave space for the free exchange of ideas. This is accomplished through the implementation of interactive protocols that develop the necessary critical thinking and analytical skills essential to true comprehension. My job and history teachers' jobs are not to tell our children what to think, but how to think. And only through this can our students fully learn the rich history of our nation and become active, involved, informed citizens ready to lead the United States into the future. No time is more important for our students to fully grasp as future leaders of our republic than that of the American Revolution era. Understand, the American Revolution is the event in American history. The preeminent document from that period, our Declaration of Independence, is the American Creed. It is what we believe as a people. It is our mission statement or in the words of Thomas Jefferson, an expression of the American mind. And the war gives the Declaration of Independence meaning. Lose the war, and the document is discarded on the ash heap of history, and with it our American experiment. Out of the fires of the American Revolution, our precious republic was born. A republic that has become a beacon of light for all the world to see in times of darkness for over 200 years, signaling our commitment to freedom and the dignity of the individual. Indeed, as we sit here today, American democracy has been important globally since its conception. And unfortunately, to my two young students, I was not there at its conception, that they would argue with you. Like, I still get asked, where was I when we invaded Normandy? So I don't know what that exactly means, other than I'm getting older and wiser. Indeed, American democracy, as we mentioned, is important globally. We have seen the spread and acceptance of democratic principles for over 248 years. Ideas like popular sovereignty, natural rights, civil liberties, the social contract, limited government, the rule of law, the right to peacefully change the government for improvement have found acceptance around the globe. The natural rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are the standard for human rights in the global community. These ideals are enshrined in our Constitution, a living document that after 237 years is the oldest written plan of government still in use in the world today. A brilliant solution this Constitution is, that has endured across time and through the storms of our history. American democracy, our republic, is embodied by the Constitution. It has become the blueprint for political and economic success for the nation state in the modern world. Yet, the revolution has not ended. The legacy of the American Revolution and all of its gains in the name of liberty and equality is in jeopardy today. While the number of democracies have grown exponentially since the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, and yes, I was alive for that, democracies young and old across the globe are threatened by expansionist authoritarian regimes in Iran and Russia, North Korea and China, who wish to extinguish the light of liberty that is shown and spread over 248 years. And at home, our democracy is being threatened from within by extremists on both the left and the right who are tearing at the inner fabric of our nation, ripping apart the ties that unite us, and twisting what it means to be a patriot. Any grasp of who we are as Americans requires an understanding of the American Revolution. Without it, we are an uninformed and flawed citizenry at best. At worst, we are the authors of our own demise as a nation. Therefore, it is essential that every generation understands the American Revolution and its legacy. Ronald Reagan, in his farewell address on January 11th, 1989, spoke of this. An informed patriotism is what we want. And are we doing a good enough job teaching our children what America is and what she represents in the long history of the world? Those of us who are over 35 or so years of age grew up in a different America. We were taught very directly what it means to be an American. And we absorbed almost in the air a love of country and an appreciation of its institutions. In 2024, teaching the American Revolution, teaching American history, is a story of perception not being the reality. The widespread perception is that the dedication to learn, to embrace, and to understand, to appreciate the American Revolution and American history is lost among our youth. But in reality, it's the adults who have failed to engage our students. Our public school system today, in this state, in this community, confines our ability to teach not just the American Revolution, but all of United States history. Issue number one, and I'll give you a few here. I see some of you have your notes, taking notes. There may or may not be a quiz that requires them to pass it, or donate $20 to send Mike Burgess to Richmond Fund so I can tour some history. You can always pass the hat. But issue number one is time devoted at every level of our schooling, elementary, middle, and high school. Here are some examples. My daughter, my son in the red sweatshirt Manning, named after the quarterback Peyton Manning, his little sister that he's always so nice to, just is in 6th grade. Well, at Lake Murray Elementary School, when they would do social studies, and we'll just do social studies, I would ask, Madeline, well, have y'all done social studies this week? No, this week is not a social studies week. Well, when are you going to do it? Well, probably in 2 weeks. And then when they would do social studies, and this includes the years they're supposed to be doing American history, well, how much time did you spend, for example, on the American Revolution? I asked her this. We spent 30 minutes. So you're going to do it again tomorrow? So no, we're taking a break for 2 weeks so we can do science. Keep that in mind when you try to engage the future leaders of the country at the elementary school level. What about in high school? It's got to be better, right? It's got to be better. Well, I'll tell you this, that in one course of U.S. history, the expectation is that you go from 1491 to 2020 at this point. All in one course. All in one course. And I'll later let you know what that sounds like. Issue number two, our obsession with testing. An obsession. You know, that's not Hayden and Manning, that's 85 and probably 62. They're a number as opposed to a person. What does this have to do with the American Revolution? What does this have to do with American history? Well, it kills social studies in elementary school. Why is it, are you only having periodic social studies days at elementary school? Can anybody tell me? We'll be interactive some here. Can anybody tell me why that is? Say it, ma'am?
It's not tested.
It's not tested. How can we spend time on things like the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and George Washington when there's not a test to determine whether Hayden is going to be an 85 or Manning's going to be a 57 as we go through this? But at the high school level we test, therefore it should be important. Yes, but remember what I told you. We've got to start with Columbus and end with 2020 and end with COVID. Well, what does that mean? It means a fast break through American history. So where I'll be talking about the American Revolution like this, British bad people, then we move on, and then somebody creates this declaration, I think it's Jefferson, then we move on, war over, and then we go on. Good luck on the test. Good luck on the test. And for those of you, raise your hand if you're currently paying taxes in the state of South Carolina. Everybody, y'all don't pay taxes anymore? Oh, y'all do? Because I'm going to go down the hall, I think, and let them know. So you have spent, since the advent of the South Carolina end-of-course testing program in roughly 2008, you have spent millions on data that is completely and totally useless. Right, as I continue to point out that the two guys who now know why I invited them to come, because I needed somewhat a comic relief, when I point out Hayden is an 85 and Manning is a 57, not really. Well, sometimes, usually in math class. That's all I get. That's all that tells me about what they learned. He learned 85% of history. He learned 57% of history. It doesn't tell me what they learned, what they didn't learn, what they know, what they don't know, so I can improve my practice. But that's all right. If you guys are fine with spending your tax dollars, millions of tax dollars on useless data, we could continue to do that. But what we're really losing because of our obsession to testing is an opportunity to educate the next generation on who we are as a people and what we are as a nation. Think about that. Issue 3, we have erased war, all war, in the standards. We have erased the American Revolutionary War in the standards. How many of you are veterans? Please stand up if you're a veteran. Stand up. Now, you're going to have to stand up, and Coach King, I see you over there. Give them a big hand. Just understand that your service and sacrifice are currently being ignored by the state standards in South Carolina. Just understand that your courage, your bravery, your heroism have been ignored. Because we got to make sure we learned about the muckrakers in 1900. So think about this in the context of the American Revolution. How does one understand the significance of the Declaration of Independence without appreciating those brave soldiers whose sacrifice and courage made the ideals of the Declaration a reality? The American dream dies if the war is lost, and their blood made our nation possible. And yet, no war in the standards. In fact, I'm going to challenge you here. I've got $100 in my wallet. If you can, if you didn't get one of these, take a second and read through. These are the standards for teaching the American Revolution. Tell me if you find anything about battles and leaders. I'm going to pass one back to Coach Keith. My only friend that showed up today.
Love you, Mike.
I love you too, man. Tell me. I'll give you $100 if you can find me the battles, the leadership of Washington on the battlefields. Francis Marion. What do you have here? Don't say French and Indian War.
I was going to put,
Yeah.
you got to say 7 Years' War.
Yeah, it's on there.
You opened the door.
But I did. Well, I'm talking American Revolutionary War.
That is.
Yeah. He's trying to get $100.
I don't need $100.
Working.
He's got that Clemson shirt back, and he sniffs that a USC grad is up here.
Ain't scared.
You shouldn't be, because y'all are so much better than us at most sports. It's not there, is it? Well, guess what? If I gave you the Civil War, there's no Lee there. There's no Jackson there. There's no Grant. There's no Sherman. We don't like Sherman here. Okay. There's no Antietam. There's no Gettysburg. There's no Chancellorsville. There's no Petersburg. You know, there's not any of the battles that my 4 great-great-grandfathers and my 1 great-great-great-grandfather fought in, of which 5 of them left Illinois Valley, which is outside the metropolis of Pumpkintown, went and fought for their community, and only 2 came back. But there's no mention of that. There's no mention of that. And he is correct. The French and Indian War is there. Isn't that ironic, though? But we're not going to teach the Revolutionary War. We're not going to do battles in the Civil War. More than one history teacher that I have worked with over my time has reminded me, when we get to World War II, we don't need to do the battles. And Vietnam, was there actually military action there? Or is it all social and political? Issue 4. We give a citizenship test to seniors. That's a good thing, right? It's required by state law. You know, the citizenship knowledge, just like immigrants coming to this country have to pass. That's a good thing. Doesn't count. Like I don't mean, you know, if Manning or Hayden took it and they failed it, they get deported, though. I consider that with Manning sometimes. It literally doesn't count in class. So think about how much attention the students actually, or teachers, pay to this. Little to none. I asked our government teachers, what do y'all do with this data? Well, we put it on the Excel sheet. And then what happens? We send it to the district office. And then what happens? I don't know. So think about this. How in the world can we expect our graduates to be active, informed, involved citizens if we have no idea whether or not they know what that means? And an issue number 5 is systemic throughout public education. We have a shortage and loss of teachers due to larger class sizes, long hours, low pay, bureaucratic overreach, Planners and organizers micromanaging everything from when you can sneeze to when you can go to the bathroom. So yes, I'm here to tell you today, storm clouds are gathering for the future of teaching, not just the American Revolution, but all of United States history. As your teachers are tired, as Brad mentioned, of being the culture war pinata. Bristow, raise your hand. That's Bristow Marchant. He was 5 minutes late, so he gets called out.
Sorry.
Ask, can you give me some examples? Just ask that question.
An example of.
Yeah, just ask the question like I told you. What is it?
Can you give me an example?
Very good, Bristow. You got to follow the script, man. Means on Monday you get hammered by the far left because you want to teach Jackson and Lee in leadership. On Tuesday you get hit by the far right because to do civil rights you've got to talk about Malcolm X. On Wednesday, the media hits the entire profession with some story of some teacher who did something wrong somewhere that represents supposedly all of us. On Thursday, what happens? Oh, the pencil pushers and bean counters down at the district office let you know that you have something you've got to do yesterday that is totally meaningless, but it's going to take 3 hours of your time. But Friday's a day off, right? Right? Is Friday a day off? No. Because then that parent who thinks General Washington crossed the Mississippi River to take on the Germans at St. Louis is going to call you and tell you why the golden child should not have gotten an 85 on a test. They could only get hundreds. That's what I mean by culture war pinata. We're tired of being used for political gain by elected officials on both sides. So I understand this is bipartisan failure. You know, that we are kicked back and forth as a volleyball or swung at as a pinata. So they can get their bumper sticker statements, they can put stuff on social media, they can win their little election so they can go collect their $10,400 stipend to go up to that state house and hang out and take selfies. There were supposed to be a couple legislators here today. I had that just for them, but they called and they said they had other things to do. Probably a good thing. So we're tired of being a target of a war on the profession, which is what is going on now. The way I would compare it, I've always wondered in my life what George Armstrong Custer felt when he was at Little Bighorn and he realized he led his men into a trap. And he realized it is hopeless. I now know, as a history teacher, what that is like. It's not good. It's not good. And it's dangerous. Yes, it's dangerous, y'all. Because it leads teachers who this is their livelihood, this is their job, they want to keep it, to neutral, vanilla, plain rice cake learning experiences. And in turn, students learn nothing about the founding era or anything about United States history. This is happening. I can actually identify people, but I'm on TV, so I'm not going to do that, who do this. This is dangerous, y'all. It stifles innovation. It stifles creativity and the willingness to have students engage in debate and civil discourse. Oh, I don't want to have a debate in my class. I don't want to have a discussion. I don't want to do a take a stand protocol where you read a statement and they either strongly agree or disagree or strongly disagree because somebody might get mad. Who would get mad? Far right, far left, media, bean counters, parents of the golden child. Witness, and how do we know this is happening? Witness the recent poor civic education scores on the NAEP, the Nation School Report Card. It is bad, y'all. It proves that the combination of a lack of time, missing pieces of the standard, micromanaging teachers, and a fear of challenging students is leading to a generation of students who know little of our nation's birth or their role as citizens. This is your problem every much as it is ours. So, a call to action is needed. Christopher Gaston once wrote, "What I can do for my country, I am willing to do. All great change begins in rooms like this, with people like you, even you, Bristow, with a few basic questions. How can I make a difference? How can I help my community at a time of crisis? How can I ensure that future generations of young people will know what it means to be an American? You need to ask yourself, am I willing to do what I can do to better our nation? And everyone here can do one simple thing. Make your voices heard. Communicate with our legislators. It's an election year, y'all. Our school board members and other decision makers, and you let them know. Legislative acts, State Department initiatives that impact the teaching of the American Revolution and American history must have teacher input. To date, this has not happened. Bristow, raise your hand again. Can you give me an example? Ask the question.
Can you give me an example?
Very good, Bristow. You're playing your role well. Sure. In March of last year, I won the South Carolina Daughters of the American Revolution Outstanding Teacher of American History. In June, I finished third in the nation for that same award. I lost to 2 Yankees. I'm not bitter about that at all. In August, I was named the South Carolina History Teacher of the Year, the one the State Department recognizes. To date, I have received a combined aggregate total in terms of phone calls, emails, and texts saying, hey, can we meet and talk about this stuff? Of 0. Of 0. 0.0. So what should you tell them? Because they'll listen to you because they want your campaign donations. They want your tax dollars. They want your vote. Well, you need to tell them we need to institute a cost-efficient, common-sense system of testing that provides information we as teachers can use. I need to know that Mike Burgess, on the end-of-course test, on question 32, which dealt with muckrakers in the progressive era, I need to know whether or not he got that. And then I need to know the trend for his class. And then I need to know the trend for all of my classes. When we have asked the State Department of Education to do this, these bean counters, pencil pushers, have said, well, we can't do that. Actually, I talked to one, he really sounded like that. We can't do that. Well, what can you do? Well, we'll let you know how the entire school did. That doesn't help me. That doesn't help any of my coworkers. What else do we need you to tell them? We need you to tell them we need to require our students to demonstrate mastery on the U.S. citizenship test before they can receive the required course credit for American government class needed for graduation. If we are expecting immigrants to this country that want to become American citizens to demonstrate this knowledge, why don't we have our high school students who are stepping into the role of American citizens demonstrate this knowledge? Does anybody know why? Because I have the answer. It's graduation rates, y'all. Well, if they fail it, what does that mean? Look, I'm cool. You can take it as many times as you want. But I want to know, on a quest of about 50 questions, that young Hayden here, he's like, now I'm getting ambushed. Young Hayden here has the basic building blocks of citizenship knowledge, so when I am older and grayer and sitting on my front porch watching the sunset, that the country is in decent hands. So what else must we tell them? What else are you to tell them? You do have homework, by the way. I will come back here and find out if you did it or not. Tell them we got to reinvent and reimagine how we teach the American Revolution and American history. We need 2 years of U.S. history in high school. It's been done around the country. Around the country. I get it. It might mean we have to combine world geography and world history. Cool. But don't you think for the future of our republic, it is important that our graduates have some clue of what it means to be an American and what America is? We need to set a standard for time in elementary school. Believe me, I am not advocating more testing. But at least that our youngest students, their first exposure to American history needs to be a positive interaction. Something that's going to grip them like I was when I was 5 or 6 years old. And I saw this show, it's called And Then There Were 13 by Dr. Henry Lumpkin on ETV. And y'all, I'm a nerd. I know they think I'm cool, but I'm a nerd. You know, while other people write to their favorite celebrity or athlete or movie star, I wrote to Dr. Lumpkin at USC, and he wrote me back, and I was hooked. But that requires the ability to hook students. Can't do that when you're doing a 30-minute lesson on the American Revolution or the Civil War or any period of history. We need you to convince decision makers to balance content instruction with a skills-based approach of critical thinking, analytical writing that develops freedom of thought and expression that makes for good citizens. The current, it's so mixed up here. The current standards you have are 2019. They're about to go out here in the next couple of years. They have gone from where they were before 2019, which was literally a billion facts, dead people and dates that meant nothing in terms of teaching you what America is and who Americans are, to now it's just totally skills-based. Well, if you read those standards, if you notice, it's almost too much flexibility here. Here, if I want to teach some of these things, I can. If I don't want to teach some of these things, I don't have to do it. Don't get me started on what it means to not teach George Washington and his political and military leadership. Certain things cannot be optional. And yet, hey, roll with it. We need to return autonomy to the classroom and away from monstrous bureaucracies that just choke this profession. Choke the ability to innovate. Well, if you want to take your students on a field trip, you got to fill out this form, that form, this form. Oh, and by the way, for every one of your students that has a medical condition, we need you to watch a 30-minute long video special to their needs. The last field trip that I took a group on, and was before COVID, I had to watch on 4 hours of videos. Does that really incentivize me to want to go do that again? But that's the requirement from the bureaucracy. Or, hey, I want to do this really cool lesson, outside this, that, and other. Well, here's a form, there's a form, everywhere there's a form. Fill them all out. Finally, I must ask of you, we must support and stand with our teachers and not blanket the entire profession with innuendo and false accusations for the wrongdoings of a few rogue actors. Look, y'all, I get it. Yes, are there people out there that are seeking inside the classroom to advance a political ideology? Absolutely. They need to be rooted out individually. They need to be addressed individually. That's not the appropriate place. But you can't blanket the entire profession. It's not one size fits all. And if you have been led to believe that either from the far right or the far left, there's some systematic conspiracy, almost like the Red Scare of the early 1950s, going on in our classrooms, let me tell you this. You've been took. You've been led astray. You've been run amok, hornswoggled, bamboozled. They done had you. And both sides do it. They just want you for only a couple things. They want your money and they want your vote. And they're willing to put forward any type of theory to get you to do it. But it's not real as a systematic profession. Individual rogue actors should be addressed individually. George Washington, upon resigning his commission as general in 1783, wrote, quote, "At this auspicious period, the United States came into existence as a nation. And if their citizens should not be completely free and happy, the fault will be entirely their own. If we forget what we did in the American Revolution, if we fail to teach the principles of the American Revolution and honor those who upheld them, then we won't know who we are in a generation. The eradication of the American memory could result ultimately in the erosion of the American spirit. And without the American spirit, what future do we have as a nation? In this time of national divide, our national renewal begins with our young people, like those two, understanding, recognizing, appreciating what America is and what it means to be as an American through United States history. I ask those of you who are here today, if you do not help us in this endeavor, if you do not help our children, then who will? Thank you. Now, I might get fired later today because one of my board members walked in. He was late, so we'll have to play that off. I have time for a few questions.
Oh, absolutely.
One thing when I do Q&A, the one thing I have to ask, I'm a teacher. As I tell them, I don't practice democracy in the classroom. I practice dictatorship. We can study democracy. Please make sure it is a question. All too often we don't, when you're in audiences like this, we don't honor time of each other because somebody wants to make a comment or make a long statement and other people just want to hear answers to the questions. If you want to talk to me afterwards, I got professional leave for the rest of the day and they got principal approval leave. We got it all day. So do we have any questions out there? Yes, sir.
I think what you're really asking us to do, or the bigger piece of this, is how do you push back on STEM? If STEM is what's driving the metrics that are getting measured.
Yeah. So, and again, now I'm somewhat biased, not only because I'm a history teacher, but my last science class in high school, I got a D minus. Travelers Rest High School, and it was the old carbon copy grades. And Miss Dunham only gave me that because she loved basketball. She liked me, and I was the point guard, and she wanted me to be eligible. And then in my math class, the only reason I made a C is because Miss Jones left the room, and the entire class did things collaboratively. But certainly STEM is important. What we seek is a balance. What we seek is a balance here. You need to understand in education, a truism is planners and organizers are going to only do what is easiest for them. It is hard to bring about the type of reform we need. Much of the STEM, the focus on math and science and whatnot, goes to the Cold War, to need to beat the Soviets to the moon. Here's the secret. We got there first. Not sure why we can't get back there. If we can send 1960s technology to the moon, I'm sure we got something in the 21st century that could give us a ride. But it's us seeking a balance here. And right now it is unbalanced when you expect history to be taught correctly, fully, fairly, and honestly in the course of 1 year. And at the elementary school level, to basically, we're going to do it because we got to do it. That's what I'm asking, for a balance. I'm not asking as much as I would love to get rid of math and science. But you had a follow-up.
Well, I know, but still, to me, I concur with your statement.
Yeah.
I'm a former military history instructor in the Army, so I was able to teach the wars.
Yes, sir.
But I will say this, I had to go from Thermopylae all the way through Gulf War in 25 hours. 4 hours for the revolution. I think you can at least spark some interest with 4 hours.
Right.
But that said,
So the difference is because you're dealing with...
It's a different audience.
It's a different audience. It's a different expectation. Now, do I do wars? Can y'all speak words?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So I'm a bit of a rogue dude because I actually do the wars. I do battles. I do leadership. I actually teach Washington, Jefferson, and Madison, which, as you noticed on your sheet there, that's not required to be taught. You can teach it if you want or not. But I get what you're saying. But the thing is, when you are, again, trying to force feed this all the way through because of this test, that some places now, I'm fortunate, my principal, my administration, they don't come in and slap you on the hand if your test scores aren't right. But I've worked in plenty of places that they do. And so now, so it's sort of, even though we know they're not, we're still all afraid. What happens if Manning is a 57 and all of a sudden Hayden, is a 42? What happens to us? And then there are those in the legislature that would love to put those test scores to determine my pay. Really? Because like you said, the audiences are different. Every class is different. 1 year I could have great scores. The next year they could bottom out. I'm the same dude. I'm the same teacher. I mean, look at these two. Can you imagine trying to teach them? So that's what I'm saying. And I think, creating time to give teachers the latitude to do this, including it in the standards, would get us further along. What other questions do we have? Yes. Oh, we're going to go ladies first. Yes, ma'am.
Unless things have changed since I left, government is only taught half a year as well as econ.
Yes. Thank you for this question. So how does that work? Not good. Because if you are, so at some schools, I don't want to get into the weeds with school schedules. At some schools, like Lexington High School, they teach on a semester schedule. So you'll have 4 classes for 90 minutes a day for an entire semester. Well, government is only going to be 9 weeks. And it's really not going to be 9 weeks because it's a senior class and you have to have an exam at the end of the 9 weeks. So it's really going to be 7.5 weeks. And then when you look at the standards, you realize that there is no real government being taught in government class. I mean, I've been asked, do you want a government class? Oh, my hell no. Why not? Because this is not government. This is not the citizenship education, the civic education that we need, that you people, I believe, think is happening. Think about that. What you think is happening is not happening. But yes, it's only on a semester schedule of 9 weeks. Did you write all this down? Or are you just going to get me fired later today? All right. What other questions? Yes, sir. You were next. Yes, sir.
Versus parents or friends. So can you give me an example? You describe not wanting to paint with too broad a brush with regard to the quality of the profession. That we should focus on individuals to root out the bad ones, yet still give them a good bit of latitude in the classroom. Can you describe what the efficient process would be for addressing this on an individual basis?
Absolutely.
This broad?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, the current process to remove a rogue or bad teacher is an absolute joke. And I'll give you an example. I won't say the school, I won't say the person, but I talked down the hall from someone that you knew class was on because you heard nothing but a dead roar down there. And it wasn't discussed. You hear my class is loud and I am loud. I don't know if y'all noticed I'm loud. But it was just chaos. And there were students, I kid you not, this is a true story. It wasn't one of them, but the one in red probably would have think about this. He was so unattentive to the students. One student, he finally started making the students put book bags on the back wall. And one of his students crawled underneath the book bags and slept for 90 minutes. And he had no idea. Yet this guy taught 1 year, taught 2 years, taught 3 years, taught 4 years before they could remove him. So we're opening another can of worms. We need to make sure a more efficient, effective process is in place for removing a teacher that is on a continuing contract, which is like tenure, when they're not getting the job done. It is hard. And guess what? And this is, I pushed some of this with my legislature friends. They were on board. Guess who pushed them back? All the teacher associations. I got lectured by one of them. Why are you doing it? So because I don't want to teach down the hall from this guy, and I absolutely don't want my children to have this guy, and if this dude isn't good enough for my children, it shouldn't be good enough for anybody's children. Any other questions? Yes, sir, in the back.
I'm the director of this institution, and I can tell you from my experience, every tiny thing is politicized these days.
Oh, yeah.
Everything, on both the right and the left. And everybody knows exactly what's wrong. I think we've devolved into a whole nation of whiners and complainers on both sides of the political spectrum. But here's my question.
Yeah, because you knew I was about to say, where's your question?
Yeah, my question is this. can you, without jeopardizing your job security,
Yeah,
put together a bullet point list of these things that you're recommended generally?
Yeah,
that be done? think
if,
that would be real
if
helpful
you
to
sign
everybody.
in and leave the email, I will send Brad a copy of my text, which has not only the bullet points, but the but other things as well. In fact, I've got a few copies, if you want one right after this, that literally lays out what needs to be done.
No, that would be great. I think that would really benefit everybody.
Yeah, so I only have 10, but if you leave, so once they're gone, and I'm charging $100 a copy. But then if you leave your email, right, you'll get that email list, Brad? Right? He'll communicate with me and I'll just send it out. I mean, it's not like the secret to the Big Mac sauce or anything. It's just something I wrote with that. What other questions do you have? Yes, sir.
When I went to school, it was 2 years of world history, 1 year of American history, and 1 year of U.S. government. What is it right now in South Carolina?
So-
and you said 2 years of American. What's the bill payer?
So here's how it currently is. You're required to get 3 social studies credits in high school. Usually students are going to take human geography their freshman year. But many of them, then it's optional whether or not you do world history. So then they'll go a year without history. Then they come for 1 year of U.S. history, and then they have a half credit of government, which we've talked about, and a half credit for economics, which also includes, now there's a separate personal finance course with that. What I propose is combining, and Chapin High School, I believe, did this 20 years ago, combining your world history and your human geography. I mean, I get it. The Romans and the Greeks are cool, right? But the Romans and the Greeks are not going to be leading this country anytime soon. And if they are, something really went wrong. Combining those into one course, your sophomore year, you would do, and you're going to have to add credits. And everybody's like, well, but they're on. People sometimes, when you talk about adding graduation credits, act like God himself with a lightning bolt struck the graduation credit list, and it's divine intervention that we get these credits. No, it's not. It's man-made. Therefore, it can be changed by man and improved. And so I would ask that the first U.S. history course be that 1607 until 1865. That second course is 1865 till wherever in the 21st century we want to stop. And then senior year, again, I think, I'm changing credits. I get it. Changing credits. Now, it might mean Manning and Hayden have less independent study time that they have now, where they go to Chick-fil-A and stuff. But I'm changing credits to meet the current need, not stick to some formula that was created 30 or 40 years ago that is now outdated. Any more questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for coming today. I appreciate you here. I'll be here for a little bit. If you want a copy of the speech, I'll give them out as long as supplies last. And then if you still want one,
I'll send them.
Brad will send them out. Thank you very much. Okay, I can do
How are you? Okay.